We are concluding the meditation. Spread the energy over the whole body. The whole body is filled with divine energy. In this peaceful state of mind, let us give auto suggestions and blessings. Auto suggestion: by the grace of divine power, we all may enjoy good health, long life, enough wealth, wisdom, and peace. By the grace of divine power, we all may enjoy good health, long life, enough wealth, wisdom, and peace. By the grace of divine power, we all may enjoy good health, long life, enough wealth, wisdom, and peace. Blessings. Bless your life partner. Bless your children. Bless your brothers and sisters. Bless close relatives and important friends. Bless people connected with your duties. Bless your enemies or miscreants, if any, with kindness, so that they also change and lead a good life. Let us bless the Vedadriyam. Be blessed by the divine. Let us bless the World Community Service Center. Be blessed by the divine. Let us bless the Temple of Consciousness at Ariyar. Be blessed by the divine. Let us bless all the meditation centers across the world. Be blessed by the divine. Let us bless all the participants and their family members. Be blessed by the divine. Let us take the twofold moral oath. I, in my lifetime, will not give pain to others physically or mentally. To the extent possible, I will remove the pain of others. I, in my lifetime, will not give pain to others physically or mentally. To the extent possible, I will remove the pain of others. I, in my lifetime, will not give pain to others physically or mentally. To the extent possible, I will remove the pain of others. We now expand our mind and bless the entire world. Rain may pour on all parts of the world timely and sufficiently. Food grains may grow abundantly to the satisfaction of all living beings. Leaders of all nations may grow spiritually and do good service to humanity. May the whole world enjoy prosperity, happiness, and peace. May the whole world enjoy prosperity, happiness, and peace. May the whole world enjoy prosperity, happiness, and peace. May there be peace within us. May there be peace around us. May there be peace in the whole world. Peace, peace, peace. We just conclude the meditation. Gently rub your palms and fingers, pass the energy over the face, raise your hands, take a deep breath. Exhaling, bring your hands down and open your eyes. Thank you for participating in the Surya meditation. And once again, a warm welcome to all of you for this special program organized by Digital Solutions Directorate of World Community Service Center. It's a special session because on Saturdays, apart from the usual meditation, Kayakalpa, thought for the day, we also invite some senior persons associated with Vedadri Maharshi and who has been doing a lot of spiritual and social service and share their thoughts with us. And today we have APT Ramanan from New Jersey. He has been in a system for more than 6 years and has been doing a lot of service in New Jersey Center. And of course, he is not new to our system here because he has been giving lectures earlier as well. And today, on behalf of all of you, we are going to request him to talk on the inner divine. What is inner divine? How do you do about it? Do we have divinity at all within us? Sometimes we look like more like animals, isn't it? But Maharshi says, no, you are just divinity, but characterized by these things. So, how do we get out of all that and see the divinity within us and show the divinity in us, others as well? It's a beautiful journey. And we request Professor Ramanan to take over. Just like we have Chat GPT giving a lot of information, today we'll have APT having a chat with him, and he's going to give information on divinity. Okay, much more than Chat GPT. So over to him, sir.
Thank you, Balachandran Ayya. வாழ்க வளமுடன். Be blessed by the divine. So I'll start the presentation, but I think since you spoke about Chat GPT, I actually have to say, to be specific, not Chat GPT, but Chat GPT's sister, Copilot, I have used to get some of the materials for today's presentation. So today we cannot live without AI. That too, I come from, I mean, I'm still associated with the IT industry. So I think in any case, as long as AI can complement our intelligence, but we do not get influenced by AI, I think we can very well make use of it. But I mean, that's just a kind of a maybe I would really say a kind of a sidebar comment, but I will actually jump into today's topic, the invoking the inner divine. So like I mentioned in the um, in the teaser video. So I think I would really say, normally there is a, for all these speeches right now, there is a guideline that okay, we need to really provide this video 1 week before. And I was actually last weekend was the Thanksgiving weekend, so I was out of town, so I didn't remember that my turn is on December 6th, until I got the reminder on December 2nd. So but on December 2nd, before I got the reminder itself, for some reason, that particular, whatever movie dialogue I said, Kadavul Padi, Mirgam Padi, that particular dialogue was, for whatever reason, I just thought of that dialogue. Then when this came up, I thought that maybe all the time, maybe Maharishi wanted me to really talk about, like what that particular dialogue talks about, which is basically a person, all human beings have this quality, part of their qualities are animal and part of their qualities are divine. I mean, all these movie makers, they are also really, sharing the thoughts, many things. It may look like movie dialogues, but you always, if you have a spiritual lens, you always can really try to understand the inner meaning, or the messaging that is really imbibed in those dialogue. Sometimes some people interpret that in a maybe a sarcastic or funny or satirical way also. All the lenses are possible, but this is one of the lens that we apply, because that actually really talks about human beings. Many times they are having both the qualities, because we come from like Maharishi has mentioned in many of his lectures, that It is the evolution, the evolutionary process, that is what has really brought us from where we started as an atom, all the way until here. Even our divine invocation, all those poems also talk about it. So so in this evolutionary process, definitely we have carried a lot of imprints from the time, in the evolution. Once upon a time, our genetic material need, I mean, we can say we, but at the same time, that means that genetic material has at some point of time, its manifestation was an animal manifestation, and then from then on, evolution has really carried us all the way up to here. So we do really carry those animal imprints, but everything started from the divine, so the divine is also there. So when we really talk about, but now let us break down, the divine qualities and animal qualities. So when we talk about animal qualities or the animal imprints, um what are typically, when we really look at any type of a video, in, be it in Discovery Channel, or um, like the similar channels, whatever the Animal Kingdom, or whatever the channels that talk about the wildlife, what you typically observe with the wildlife is their topmost behavioral trait is the survival instincts. They have such survival instincts that, people talk about snakes, right? So snake, if you encounter a snake, you do not really show any kind of a anxiety or any type of a negative feeling, or even fear or anything of that sort. The snake will not really be bothered. It will just move and start, it will mind its business and it will move. But if you, inside you, if you showed any fear or anxiety, the snake has the intelligence to detect that. It can sense that signal. Then its survival instinct kicks in, and it attacks you. So that is what, I would say, when animals evolved, this is one of the traits that they have developed all the time. They actually have developed that survival instincts. So the survival instincts are the ones that shaped their competence. And also, before the humankind evolved, for any situation the animals are into, they are really talking about two things, right? I mean, fight or flight. That is the decision that they need to make. In this particular, I am encountering another animal. That animal probably is stronger than me or weaker than me. Depending on that, I will really take a decision whether I'm going to fight or whether I'm going to leave that place. I sometimes, even lions, when they have three or four bulls in front of them, they are not going to fight. If they are alone, they are going to take the action of flight. They are not going to fight. But even if it is a single bull, it takes three or four lions, to fight against them, because they have those horns. They can kill them. So all these things are knowledge, and those things that animals have gathered. All these experiences are there, in animal genes, right? So those imprints basically trigger their thought process, and that thought process result in action. And over a period of time, this becomes knowledge also. Now, the evil temperaments that we have today are mainly, all these imprints, and whatever things that animal had, which are really related to, their survival instincts, or the fight or flight, that particular behavioral trait, especially these two, right? And the competence, they developed some competence. Not all of the competence or something, because human beings reached a certain stage of a kind of a forming a civilized societies. That is where, we separate ourselves, where we understood that there is a way to coexist, even if the weaker, because when you really look at the animal kingdom, or the survival, the concept of survival is survival of the fittest, right? And when we realized at some point of time, as in the evolutionary process, that it is possible that both the stronger beings in the ecosystem and the weaker beings in the ecosystem within the human beings can coexist. That is the time we formed civilization. In animal kingdom, it is always survival of the fittest, so which means that the weaker will eventually at some point of time will be eliminated from the ecosystem. But here we formed this particular our society was and the civilization is something that the human beings evolved into, where we formed all we formed a system where everyone, even the weakest human beings and also the strongest human beings, can coexist in a peaceful setup. I think that is the ultimate objective. Are we exactly living that way? Definitely not. There are definitely a lot of shortcomings are there right from the time immemorial. That those shortcomings are there. But I think compared to animals, we definitely have evolved into a better lifestyle. To that extent, we need to accept. But all these animal qualities are something that we still carry to a large extent. In fact, if we really look at recent years, only the animal qualities and the animal imprints are manifesting stronger, and maybe the divine qualities are in the decline, you can say, in the last at least 40-50 years, right? Because when you talk about divine qualities, because before we go into divine qualities, one thing we also need to keep in mind: animals have all these survival instincts and fight or flight, all those things. But even among animals, they also, in the evolutionary process, since they are deeply connected in some way with the divine, they also many times have exhibit divine qualities. We all of us, I think people who own pets, especially dogs, they will know this very well. Because a dog, to the family that adopted the dog, it shows unconditional love. That's something everybody will any I mean, I don't own a dog, but I really have really visited families or visited people, lot of the friends or the colleagues or well wishers, whomever I have visited. The one of the friends, I would say not not a friend. I mean, he's an acquaintance. He's the person, a realtor from whom I bought the house, but he became a friend. But he is an elderly person. So he recently, when I visited him in the last 2 years back, he adopted a dog. I mean, always he talks about that dog, the love the dog shows, and how that actually makes him feel energetic at the old age. All those things he was really talking about. So when you really talk about that, when you think about dog itself, you will say that today's human beings, who can actually match the love and compassion the dog shows towards the family, the family which adopted the dog. I really think that probably many all of us, even the most realized beings, probably might fail. But when you really talk about dogs, where the animal imprint comes in, but the dog really shows that much unconditional love towards the family that adopted him or her. But at the same time, when the dog sees a stranger, then the animal qualities, all the survival instincts, the fight or flight, all those things kicks in. So that is the animal imprint that kicks in within the dog. So that's where, why I am saying this is, you also need to really understand love and compassion are definitely not only a human quality, it also evolved in the evolutionary process. So it is there in animals also, from there we carried, right? And then adjustment, tolerance, and sacrifice, this is also another thing that you will really say a divine quality, because that is one this also again, animals, when they, for survival, animals also, they formed colonies, or they formed a pride. The lions always hunt in packs. They have a pride. And the monkeys, like from whatever, as per the science, monkeys only evolved into humans. So all of them live in packs. Many birds, they fly in fly in packs, right? I mean, flock of birds. So when you really look at it, when they really have to really combine as a team, obviously there has to be some level of adjustment and tolerance, if not sacrifice. Without that adjustment and tolerance, that it cannot be, no, a group cannot sustain. So all these qualities are divine qualities. These divine qualities also carried, from the animal to human being and in today's world. But human beings definitely have one specific aspect which animals, probably, I don't really think that we would have really observed any animal going towards that, which is actually seeking. Okay. And then, since we have the ability to retain our competence and develop knowledge, animals have definitely developed knowledge. That is why, they are really able to, and and a lion knows how to hunt, so it's a knowledge or competence it has, right? So, but no, knowledge takes evolves into wisdom in human beings, because the wisdom is where people say that they understand how life works, they understand how human beings work, they understand how everybody else works, and they start really taking actions that are the right actions. Once a person gets a level of maturity where they are really able to apply knowledge compassionately, and making sure that the knowledge is really applied with the empathy towards other human beings, then that is the time they become the wise people, wise men or women. Then at that particular time, the wisdom kicks in. And as you are doing, going towards seeking, and you gain wisdom, definitely at some point of time, when this process repeats, at some point of time we will ultimately achieve the realization, and at that particular point in time, that you will really think that you are really one with the divine. But this is a kind of a gist of it. But at the same time, when we really say that, how we are going to invoke our inner divine, that invoking the inner divine is something, we will try to really look at it from how uh, we have our personalities, right? And we have personality traits, and these personality traits are something that we have developed right from the time we were children, then to teenagers, adults. So a person who probably are uninitiated into any type of a spiritual practice, they you know you they are the I think commoners or normal people. So, in our Western clinical psychology, this is one particular model. And this is where, like I said, I used the co-pilot. I asked the question to really understand, because I think that that is where artificial intelligence gives a bigger capability. Where if I have to really find out something like this, I probably need to read books today. I can ask a AI model, and it really gives me, what psychology thinks about, what is the psychology talking about, because all the time we have our Eastern philosophies, but our education system molded us into Western thought processes. So for us to really relate to what the modern science and the clinical psychology has classified the personality of the various human beings. So there is a specific model. I forgot what probably I should have noted down that model. Probably I can share it later. But that particular model gives a classification of what are the personality traits, negative traits and positive traits. So see, here in this particular thing, I am putting this red and green combination. Consider red as the animal quality and green as the human quality. So when negative traits are there, when there are more negative traits or animal traits are dominant, and your divine traits are probably a little lesser, then in that case, people display negative traits. When people display negative traits, okay, so one of the things is disinhibition, so impulsive and irresponsible. So people, who are the people who are impulsive? So this is what, in all the scriptures they call, a kind of an what we call as asura behavior, or whatever it is, something like, a demonic behavior or something. People who are impulsive, when they go in levels of extreme, that impulsiveness, because what is impulsiveness is basically, you have too much passion towards your personality, you have too much passion towards your thought processes, you are thinking that what you think is the right thing, and you want probably you want to paint the entire world in that particular flavor. I think that is what is really causing a person to exhibit an impulsive behavior. And when they demonstrate it, then they are irresponsible. Antagonism is another negative trait. So antagonism is something in today's world, that impulsiveness probably, it's a highly democratic world. So in this particular case, people who have that negative personality, you call them as antagonists. That is where, in movie you have that antagonists. So they are, the qualities or the personality traits that they display is being manipulative and deceitful. See, this manipulativeness and deceitful, definitely, you can very well say that it really is the animal imprint, because there are a lot of animals, especially foxes and some of these animals, they have developed those traits, because they need to be manipulative. They need to manipulate the ecosystem. Sometimes, even that is where, all the stories are there. The foxes manipulate all the stronger predators and make sure that they get a share of the meat, in whatever way they want, being manipulative and being deceitful. So the same kind of a personality, many of the people today, say for example, people who do not show business ethics, people who actually try to play, use people as a vote bank and gain political advantage, or any such things, I'm just giving examples. So they are manipulating the people's mindset and taking advantage of them. They are not really thinking of the world at large, or they are not really thinking or understanding what is right, what is wrong. They only think about their, what selfish needs, that is really driven by the survival instinct at the end of the day, which is what is the animal imprint, which they are not able to get rid of. That is why they are antagonists, right? Then the negative affectivity, that is where, this is where I said anxious and hostile. You talk about a snake, that is where it is. That anxiety in the snake, that when it really sees that there is a particular person who has a fear, or anxiety, and he's really going to attack me, or she is going to attack me, and I have to really attack her or him. When the snake thinks like that, the snake shows, its anxiety and also the hostility, because it has to be hostile to the person to save, again, the survival instinct. It's all tied back to survival instinct, but it really, translate into this type of a personality trait, in human beings also. So now, um we talk about, like, how when a man, when you really talk, when human beings start really getting into more into start realizing lot of their divine qualities, they really start really get into personality, positive personality traits. Then they exhibit emotional stability, responsibility, and empathy. So the emotional stability probably is the first phase of maturity, because when you really think that when you really start understanding that, what is right and what is wrong, and look at how other human beings are, and it is something like you are really able to have a better control over your inner emotions. It can be, being impulsiveness, manipulativeness, anxiety, hostility, all those things you are really able to manage. Keep them under check and start really applying a reasoning and rational thinking. At that particular time, you are really becoming emotionally stable. When you are emotionally stable, definitely for a longer period of time, you definitely also become responsible at that particular time. You, because people who have emotional stability, you definitely can work with them. They will not cause you trouble, but they probably maybe, a little bit like average human beings. What we will normally see, many of the people on the street, be it at workplace, they mind their own business. They do not really do greater things. But there are responsibility is something. When you really become responsible, you start really leading others. You start, even in a family, the parents, both mother and father, they bring their own flavors of leadership, where they are taking responsibility of, either the financial wellness of the family, or the mental well-being and the physical well-being of the family members. I mean, it's a basic. So there are different, both flavors of leadership, come, come in accordance with that, right? And empathy, even responsible people may not have empathy, because empathy is a different trait. Empathy is something, say, like we talk about, look at, the the world in many ways. Sometimes if you are working in large companies, you look at people in the middle leadership, you look at the people who are in the topmost leadership, successful people. I'm not, even does not mean that a person who is having a C level title, is always a person who shows empathy. But I think the empathy, really successful businessmen, really compassionate businessmen like Ratan Tata or Warren Buffett, there are people who actually are philanthropists, who turned into philanthropists. They actually have at some point of time have really gathered that empathy, not only that leadership responsibility, which are the middle managers, because they actually feel responsible, but at the same time, when they are when their ego is hurt, or when they really think that their importance, or they are hurt, their ego is hurt, then in that particular case they will not really try to understand the other person. They will start displaying the animal qualities. But once, where people really start becoming better leaders is that they start really empathizing, understanding, putting themselves in other person's shoes, and then trying to really understand what that person is thinking through. That is when they develop this quality of empathy. So this is something that I am really talking about. All these things that I am talking about is something like what the Western the Western lens of looking at the personality traits, and how these personality traits, when they really shape up how a person becomes a better person. I was also watching the video as I was preparing for this, watching one video where Maharishi, that has addressed this particular title of non-yar, which is who am I? Ultimately, when we really talk about the inner divine, that is the key to unlock our inner divine. So when he really was covering that particular topic, he was making one interesting point, that it seems he was saying that he was in one spiritual discussion with the thinkers from across the globe, in probably in one of the UN forums. So I think a particular thought process came. West is when you really talk about West and East, they are two different extremes. Somebody made a point that West and East are two different extremes, because West is molded more on the science, which in our Tamil or in Indian, in Sanskrit, because it's not exactly Tamil, you can call it as the Sanskrit word also, Vinyanam, because Vinyanam is what really became Vinyanam, and that is where the Western sciences closer to that, right? And when you really talk about Mainyanam, or the spiritual knowledge, that is what the Eastern philosophies, because when you talk about West, that is science. When we talk about the Eastern culture, the Eastern culture is more about philosophy, understanding of the spirituality, trying to the seeking and understanding, so those kind of things. So these two are different extremes. So the thought process that was expressed in the forum is these two are different extremes, they can never meet. So Maharishi said, he made a point saying that, um, see, if you continue to travel in East, at some point of time you will meet the West. If you continue to travel in the West, at some point of time you will meet in the East, because if you really look at from the center of the earth is round. So whichever direction you go, you will meet. It's all our perception that this thought process and that thought process is different, but it all really emanated from the same source. So that is one particular thought process. Taking that thought process only, I am trying to see, um, we know like what Maharishi said about, this is the Western way of interpretation of the personality traits, whereas we also have our own our own. It is not a personality trait, but at the same time, what are the temperaments that exist in human beings that drive that drive you or your behavior, where whether animal imprints are prominent or divine imprints are prominent, right? When animal imprints are prominent, then you will exhibit all the six evil temperaments, like be it anger, greed, miserliness, immoral sexual passion, vanity, and vengeance, right? Because these are all driven largely by your survival instincts and the fight or flight response. If you really look at anger finally, anger, even though you can really say that anger is a manifestation of ego, everything comes under one, everything is driven by one basic and fundamental aspect. There is a fear in every single living being, that at some point of time maybe I may be overpowered, or somebody will really win over me, somebody can really cause harm to me. That particular fear, uh, it creates that layer of ego, and the ego's manifestation finally becomes anger. And because you have that, in order to protect yourself, in order to make sure that you are all the time safe, you want to build a safety net. And that is where you really develop greed, and to go and really gather all the material things, and then you don't want to give it to anybody. So that is where you develop miserliness. Then once you have all the belongings, then I think you talk about, you develop all the this because you think that you are going to exist permanently in this world. Then the immoral sexual passion and vanity, those qualities set in. And and at that particular time, when the ego is at high, then when people really do all sorts of things, when they face defeat from others, and they are not really able to express it, they suppress, they have to suppress the anger. Because if they really constantly face certain people, where the typical animal instinct, right, fight or flight, if you cannot fight somebody, you are really flighting from that situation, then in that particular case you are suppressing your anger. That anger becomes vengeance. So all these traits are something that continues to um, uh, keep us trapped in the past, which where all our past imprints, when we were animals, those imprints are something, we are trapped in those imprints when we have all these evil temperaments, right? So now, how we are going to transform from animal to god is basically to, by maneuvering these evil temperaments. This is one of the techniques, not probably this is the only techniques, but when you really start developing all these the six evil temperaments, you are actually conquering them with the anger, with tolerance, and greed with contentment, and miserliness, charity, philanthropy. Because if you really look at it, this is the fundamental, when civilization formed, this is the fundamental quality. People, whoever has formed the civilization, whoever thought that weaker and stronger beings can coexist, it is built on the foundational, whatever the foundational qualities of tolerance, contentment, charity, philanthropy, and chastity, equality, forgiveness. All these are the fundamental qualities that the early human beings have adopted to form the civilization. From there only society evolved, where everybody was given a platform or opportunity to coexist. So this is a fundamental thing. This is probably your foundation for you, or a platform in which you will really embark on the journey of the seeking your inner divine. But how we actually develop the good qualities, or going towards, the techniques to going towards the inner divine, is that is where, like, we do our introspection practices. What Maharishi has guided us is, we have all these introspection practices. We analyze our thoughts, we do moralization of desires, neutralization of anger, eradication of worries, all these things. All these introspection practices are something, today's world is very fast, but it is something like, even if we set aside even 30 minutes in a or 1 hour in a weekend, even if we really spend some time to do at least one introspection practice, we will definitely move in that direction. But the other practice also is, doing self inquiry. Who am I? Where did I come from? So when you really look at it, there is something Maharishi also mentioned in his speech about, do many times when we really say, when we ask the question is, who am I, or where did I come from, that is the first thing that we really talk about. Because many times we are really thinking, either we are associating ourselves with body or mind or things like that. But when we really look at, if do any of us remember what we felt at the time of birth? I don't really think we can remember. Or are we likely to remember anything when we are about to die? I think that is also because many times when somebody dies, especially unless they die by accident or something, when their the life force leaves the body all of a sudden. If people are really having a developing a disease and then probably dying slowly, then in that case, at the towards the moment of dying, probably they will lose all their memory, the cognitive abilities will go at that particular time. It's very very difficult at that particular time anybody will remember. Then who are we? It is a difficult question, right? That who am I is the specific question that we would need to ask, to do that, invoking our inner divine. But invoking our inner divine, out of all the techniques, I am, yeah, I am, what I am actually recommending are these two, because we have so much. Like I said, today we live in the fast world. In this fast world, because this world is very fast, materialistic, there is a very high chance that, and that is not very high chance, that is what is actually happening today, where people are manifesting their personalities to develop all the six evil temperaments, mainly because today, um, the definition of success is always that somebody in their life is considered successful only if they become a very famous doctor, or a famous lawyer, or a top executive in their in the corporate. If somebody has really done something like that, or a high ranking government officer, or they became a big entrepreneur, and they have done all that, and they retire at 65, they retire at 70, then only the society sees them and say that, okay, this person was so and so, he's a very nice person, he's a very good person. We have built a society like that. When we have built a society like that, then in that case, what happens is, the natural instinct of that particular society is to really attain that particular image, so that they can live, they think, I can live with peace and respect at my old age. I think when everybody have that kind of a thought process, they are really going to develop all these six evil temperaments. So it is very important. I think there is nothing wrong in pursuing growth in your professional life, or in your life you want to achieve life goals. But it is very important you achieve all that with a with the right temperament, with the right thought process, with the right when we like I mentioned, when the societies were formed, like what Maharishi has said about, the positive traits that are really maneuvering the evil temperaments. When they had that qualities, they were really able to form a very good and solid civilization or solid society. We need to unlearn what, all these evil temperaments, and relearn those traits. That is what is important. But how do we really do it? I think that is the fundamental, again, to really go and invoking our inner divine, where we move away from the animal imprints and we start really going into invoking inner divines. So lot, even though lot of thoughts are there, the very powerful thoughts are the very powerful techniques, I would say. Your analysis of thoughts, because one many times Maharishi talks about the thoughts, your thoughts. Basically, whenever a thought comes, we all have done the exercise in introspection, try to really understand what that thought is and why that particular thought occurred. So we do have those techniques, we can go through that. But one of the things, very very fundamental thing that we can really think through, when a thought comes, like, try to really understand whether this thought is really triggered by your survival instinct, which is basically from an animal imprint, or otherwise this thought is really coming out of a divine quality. If you are really able to do this classification itself, then I think you can really even make a determination whether the root of that thought is something, that imprint, whether you need to keep or you need to really remove that imprint. This is a very very simple technique that if you follow, then in that case you will have greater control over understanding what imprint is shaping your behavior, and you will be able to remove or eradicate that imprint. Then that will take you closer to your inner divine. Then it is also important that you do your self inquiry and do who am I. That is very important, because many times this particular fundamental question, again, uh, are we the body or are we the mind? Because these are the two things. Then the soul is a different thing. But if you are the body, um, is it something that can be, we all really have the blood pressure machine. So blood, when you really go and really measure your blood pressure, it tells your blood pressure. It actually says that what is your heartbeat. Can you really pump your heart faster or slower at will? I think it's not possible. So what is doing it, or who is doing it? So we actually have to really see that we have limited control over our organs. Or can we really go grow an extra organ? Can we grow an extra finger or extra eye or extra anything? I don't really think we have that capability. We have to maintain the body as it is. We can't even transform our body to our younger self. So the body is all, we are also not the body, right? And also, am I the mind? Say for example, can we go and recall any memory about our first birthday celebration, or what we studied in science? What is the syllabus that we had in ninth grade science or ninth standard science? And sometimes we won't even remember what we had breakfast the same day, last Saturday morning breakfast, or last Saturday lunch. What did we have? We will not remember. Our mind. So mind is also is not something that we can really say that that is me. Sometimes people don't even remember. On a lighter note, many people don't even remember their spouse's birthdays, or the or even the wedding anniversary. I think that's the biggest, I would say, go to YouTube, probably that is the biggest collection of jokes that you will get, right? So I think that is what is our mind and body is. So our awareness of the body and mind are not something that we will associate with us, but our body and mind are great tools. So when you go and seek and do this, who am I, that self inquiry, and try to ask this question, at some point of time you will realize that you are the divinity and you are the consciousness. That is where, like Maharishi says, most he has in many of his speeches, he really talks about this. Who am I? Where did I come from? I came from my parents. Where did my parents come from? Mother came from maternal grandparents, and father came from paternal grandparents. And where did they come from? You keep asking the question. Then when you keep going back, the earliest human would have come from the monkeys, and they would have come from all these are mammal family. They Before that you had reptiles, and you have the amphibians. You all then you keep going back. The multi-cell organisms would have been there. Then the single cell organisms. Before even a single cell organism was there, there was no life, and the planet existed. And we all know that how the planet came into the existence, big bang, how big bang happened. It all really came from that singularity. So we go back, and I think then in that particular case, that is what I think. This is basically maneuvering and trying to really understand it through what science has taught us, right? But at the same time, taking that journey, inner journey, and seeking and trying to really tracing back this origin from inside on your own will be a tough journey, because for you to really getting into that has to be there. But again, looking at this analysis of thoughts, come more than that, this particular thought, doing this particular thought is a bigger thing. Say for example, I also try to practice this. When you have a situation, a work situation, where your manager is yelling at you, at that particular time, like you just sit and really analyze and observe and watch your thought. In your thought, when your manager is yelling at you, an animal quality, or the animal the survival instinct, whatever, if that kicks in, that fight or flight, that kind of a personality trait kicks in, obviously your ego will take it. How can he or she can shout at me? I have this much quality, I have this much capability, I am smarter than him, I am smarter than her. What are they thinking? These kind of thoughts will dominate your mindset. These kind of thoughts dominate your mindset. There will be confrontation, there will be conflict. That is what it will manifest into. But sometimes, if a divine quality comes in, because you have Suppose if you really say that at this particular time you are actually getting this kind of a thing because your project is currently, you have a deadline coming up. You have 1 week to the deadline. Your project status is that you are not really going to make that deadline. So the your manager has to go and face the customer, and they are yelling at you. Then you also try to really see the manager is not also a human being, and they are not yelling at you because they feel superior. They are yelling at you because they are going to be yelled at by the customer. There is a chain reaction. That particular thought process, if you think that is empathy. Okay. And when you really start thinking in that way, then you are really starting to think, say for example, when you are not thinking just for you, you are thinking about another person who also came from the same source, the divine, which is the divinity. You also evolved from divinity, and he or she also evolved from divinity. We all came from the same source. We play different roles. And if we think that, if we start really think in that direction, then in that case, we will start seeking our inner divine. That is the thought process, I want to leave everyone with. And then, just reflect on that thought. And also I'll take a pause now and ask if anybody has any questions. Okay, maybe I think I realized that I didn't do screen sharing. I thought, oh, okay, I'm doing screen sharing. Okay, fine. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you
Yep.
so much for excellent speech. Yeah. Now, anyone willing to interact with our speaker, please be free to ask. Anybody else? Okay,
Okay.
Balachandra sir.
Thank you, Professor Ramanan.
Yeah.
In a very, very simple way, you put
Yeah.
such a great point across that, yes, now I am reasonably confident that some divinity is there within me also. Okay. Thought came to me, this Swamiji's twofold culture.
Yeah.
If only the world follows just these two, that I will not harm anybody. To the extent possible, I'll help others. I think most
Correct.
of our
Correct.
animal imprints will be removed.
Correct. Correct.
Isn't it? In a very,
Yeah.
that's the greatness of Vedadri Maharshi, that great changes in culture, civilization can happen if these two things can be practiced.
Correct.
Isn't it?
Correct.
And
Yeah.
then, of course, the divinity will automatically start pouring in when it will come out. And you have brought it out very nicely that when a thought comes, thought analysis we have done. But this type of thought analysis, that is this thought coming out of animal instinct or divine instinct?
Yep.
If it is animal instinct, I'll be careful.
Yep.
I will try to get over that. If it is a divine instinct, good, go ahead. I think that's a very beautiful practical point we are able to take from this session.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. Be blessed.
Yeah.
Anybody
Thank
else
you.
can just share their thoughts, their divine thoughts, or how they came over animal imprints, etc.
Yeah, I think maybe I
Okay.
think I spoke a lot. Okay. All right.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Hope so everyone have actually very clear idea about it, sir. No doubts, it seems. Thank you so much, sir, once again.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yep.
much, Balachandra sir.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay, we can conclude the session. Thank
Yep.
you so much. Once again, on behalf of WCSC Sky Online English Group Meditation, we thank you all. And let us go for today's announcement. We are having daily online English group meditation, morning 6 a.m. and evening 6:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. As well as 1st and 16th of every month, we are conducting foundation courses. So you can refer your friends and relatives. So with this, we close our session. This is Visalakshi Saravanan signing off. Be blessed by the divine.